Hier ist die neue Folge der Ökonomie-Videos.
Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping into one of the most talked about, but honestly, one of the most misunderstood technologies out there, the blockchain. We're going to break it all down and get to the bottom of why some people call it a digital trust machine.
Okay, so let's just start with the absolute core problem that blockchain was invented to solve. I mean, think about it. Any file on your computer, a picture, a song, whatever, you can copy it, paste it, email it 1,000,000 times, and every single copy is perfect. Now, that's awesome for sharing photos, right? But for money, it's a complete disaster. How do you prove you own the original digital dollar if I can just make a perfect copy of it? This, right here, is the question that stumped the smartest computer scientists for decades.
You know, for pretty much all of history, our solution to this problem was simple: middlemen. We use banks to keep track of our money, notaries to verify documents, governments to keep land registries. They are the central authorities, the trusted third parties. But what blockchain says is, hey, what if we don't need them? It proposes this radical idea of a decentralized world, a peer-to-peer network, where trust isn't in one single place, but it's spread out across absolutely everyone.
And this gets us to the really nerdy but super important term for this whole issue, the double spending problem. It's the simple reason you can't just attach $1 to an email and send it. Without a bank in the middle to say, okay, that dollar just left your account and went to their account, what's to stop you from sending that exact same digital dollar to 100 different people? That is the fundamental problem that had to be solved to create purely digital cash.
So how in the world did they solve it? Well, the solution is the blockchain itself. And at its heart, it's really just a shared public ledger. Think of it like a global spreadsheet that everyone can see, but no one can change. It's this really clever system that, for the first time, creates true digital scarcity. It makes it possible to have a digital thing that cannot be copied and spent twice.
Let's just forget all the complicated code for a second. This analogy really helps. Imagine a massive public puzzle that the whole world is working on together. Now, every 10 minutes or so, a new piece gets added. This piece is a block that contains a bunch of new transactions. But, and this is the key, to add that new piece, you first have to solve an incredibly difficult mathematical puzzle connected to it.
All right, so let's crack open one of these puzzle pieces and see what's inside. Each block is made of 3 key ingredients. First, you've got the data itself. That's just the list of transactions. Alice paid Bob, Charlie paid David, and so on. Second, and this is crucial, it has a cryptographic fingerprint, a hash of the block that came before it. This is the chain part of blockchain. It's what links them all together in a way that's impossible to break. And third, you have the nonce. That's the magic number. It's the solution to that super hard puzzle we were just talking about.
So a natural question is, who is actually doing all this? Who's keeping all these records straight, and who is solving these insane puzzles? Well, this is where 2 really important groups come in, the nodes and the miners. You can think of them as the guardians of the entire system. And to give you a sense of the scale here, the Bitcoin network alone is kept honest by about 15,000 full nodes. These are just computers spread all over the planet, and every single one of them is storing a full, up-to-date, identical copy of the entire history of every transaction that has ever happened.
And this, right here, is the magic of decentralization. These nodes are everywhere. Big hubs in the US, across Europe, you name it. And what that means is that there's no single off switch. If you shut down 100 nodes in one country, the network doesn't even blink. It just keeps chugging along. There's no central point of failure.
Now, it's really important to get the difference between these 2 roles. The nodes are kind of like the librarians of the network. They hold a copy of every book, the whole blockchain. They check every new transaction to make sure it follows the rules. They're the record keepers. The miners, on the other hand, they're the puzzle solvers. They're the ones doing the heavy lifting, the intense computational work of bundling up those new transactions and racing each other to find that magic nonce that lets them add the next block to the chain.
Okay, but why? Why on earth would anyone set up entire warehouses full of supercomputers, burning insane amounts of electricity just to solve puzzles 24/7? The answer, as you might guess, is pretty simple.
There is a huge multi-million-dollar reward for doing it.
Just to put the amount of work into perspective, let's start with us. A human, just randomly trying to guess the puzzle's solution, could maybe try one guess every 9 or 10 hours. That's a hash rate of about 0.00003 hashes per second. Basically, you're not even in the game.
Now, compare that to the Bitcoin network. The entire network is firing off around 269 trillion of these guesses every single second. The scale of this is just staggering. It's a global supercomputer, more powerful than anything else on Earth, and it's all dedicated to one single task, finding that next block.
So for all that work, what's the paycheck look like? Well, it comes in two parts. First, miners collect all the small transaction fees that people pay to get their transactions processed quickly. But the real prize, the jackpot, is the block reward. The first miner to solve the puzzle gets a big payout of brand new, freshly created Bitcoin that never existed before.
But here's where it gets really interesting. That block reward, it isn't fixed. About every 4 years, it gets cut in half in a pre-programmed event that everyone calls the halving. It started at 50 Bitcoin way back in 2009, and now it's down to just 6.25. This automatically makes new Bitcoin harder and harder to create over time, which is designed to make it scarce, kind of like mining for a precious metal, like gold.
Okay, so we've got this whole system, and its entire philosophy is built on this beautiful idea of decentralization. No one's in charge. But here comes the twist. The insane competition and economics of mining have actually created a bizarre paradox. The system designed to be decentralized might actually be centralizing.
Let's just look at the data, because it tells the whole story. This is the breakdown of who controls all that computing power, that hash rate on the network. And wow, it's not subtle. Just 4 big, organized groups, these mining pools, control about 3/4 of the entire network's processing power. That does not look very decentralized, does it?
And of course, having all that power translates directly into winning the rewards. So if we look at who's actually mining the new blocks and getting paid, it's the same story. Again, those same top 4 pools are successfully mining about 70% of all the new blocks. If you throw in the 5th biggest pool, you're looking at 80% of the rewards going to just 5 groups.
So the conclusion here is pretty much unavoidable. The game has changed. Mining has become this massive industrial-scale business. That romantic image of a lone coder mining in their garage with a laptop? Yeah, that's a thing of the distant, distant past. Today, it's a game dominated by a handful of massive players. This concentration of power leads us directly to the big, scary what-if question that's haunted Bitcoin from the very beginning. What happens if one group gets too much power? This is the legendary fear of the so-called 51% attack.
So, what is it? Well, in theory, if one person or one group could control more than half of all the computing power on the network, they could, theoretically, overpower everyone else. They could block other people's transactions from going through. And worse, they could spend their coins and then use their power to rewrite the history and give themselves their coins back, effectively pulling off that double spending problem we talked about. It would break the whole system's promise.
But, and this is a huge but, here's why most people in the space think this would never actually happen. Because the blockchain is totally public, an attack like this would be spotted instantly by the entire world. And the community, all the other nodes and miners, could just coordinate and agree to ignore the attacker's fake chain. They would just treat it as invalid and continue on from the last known good block. The attacker would have spent billions on an attack only to be left controlling a chain that everyone else agrees is worthless. They'd be king of a worthless castle.
And that kind of brings us full circle to this final thought. We started out looking at blockchain as this amazing piece of technology, right? A trust machine built on brilliant code and cryptography. But after seeing all this, maybe its real strength, its ultimate security, isn't just in the math. Maybe the most powerful thing about it is the global, decentralized community of people who all have a shared interest in defending the network and keeping it honest. Is its greatest strength the code or the culture? It's something to think about.